All right, let's dive into one of the most powerful and honestly most misunderstood ideas in all of economics. It's a theory that explains why some of the most important things in our lives just seem to get more and more expensive, no matter what. I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about this? It's kind of nuts, right? Every year, the phone in your pocket gets ridiculously powerful and somehow cheaper. But then you look at a college bill or a hospital visit, and the prices seem to be heading for the moon. It just feels completely backward. Well, guess what? There's a single powerful economic idea that explains this exact puzzle. And that idea is the key to this whole thing. It's a fascinating economic theory, but it has a name that almost everyone gets wrong. So yeah, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the theory itself, let's just make sure we're all on the same page and calling it the right thing. Okay, so you'll often hear people say Baumol's, B-O-U-M-A-L, cost disease. It kind of sounds right, but it's not. The correct name is Baumol's, B-A-U-M-O-L, cost disease. It's named after the brilliant economist William J. Baumol, who figured all this out way back in the 1960s. So, what is it? Here's the big idea in a nutshell. It's what happens when wages go up for jobs where you can't really get any more productive. Think about it. A nurse, a teacher, a musician. Their pay has to go up, not because they're suddenly doing their job twice as fast, but because they have to be paid enough to keep them from leaving and going to work in, say, a high-tech field where productivity is always going up. To really get this, there's a classic example that just makes the whole thing click. And it's all about a simple string quartet. Okay, just picture this. Back in 1824, it took 4 musicians 30 minutes to perform a Mozart string quartet. Fast forward to today. How long does it take? Well, it still takes 4 musicians 30 minutes to play that same piece. The labor is identical, and yet the cost of a ticket to that show has gone through the roof. What's the deal? This is the absolute heart of the matter. The productivity, the output per hour of those musicians hasn't changed in 200 years. You can't just play Mozart twice as fast to be more efficient. You'd ruin it. The value of the performance is locked into the time it takes to do it right. So why on earth are today's musicians paid so much more? Well, it's simple. They have other options. That talented violinist could have been a software engineer. That cellist could have been a data scientist. And those jobs have seen huge productivity gains. So, to convince someone to spend thousands of hours mastering an instrument instead of learning to code, the orchestra has to offer a competitive salary. Now, that whole quartet example, it's not just a cute story. It's basically a model for how our whole economy works. Baumol said you can think of the economy as being split into 2 different worlds. On one side, you've got the progressive sector. This is where technology is king. Think manufacturing, software development, anywhere that innovation and automation let one person produce way more over time. It's why your phone got so much better and cheaper. But on the other side, you've got the stagnant sector. This is where output is tied directly to a person's time. You know, a haircut still takes about the same time it always has. A nurse can only care for so many patients at once. Okay, so here's the chain reaction that happens. Step 1, a factory gets new robots. Its workers become way more productive and they get a raise. Great. Step 2, the local school district now has to raise teachers' salaries. Otherwise, those teachers might just quit and go get a better paying job at the factory. But here's the kicker. Step 3, a teacher can't just productively teach twice as many kids in the same amount of time. So the only way for the school to pay for those higher salaries is to raise the price, which means higher tuition or taxes. And boom, this brings us right back to that question we started with and to things you see in your own life. This isn't just some abstract theory. This is the reality of the world we live in. This is it. This is why healthcare costs keep rising. It's why college tuition feels impossibly high. It's why tickets to the theater or orchestra are so expensive. And why government services like police or social work cost more and more. All of these jobs are in that stagnant sector. We're paying 21st century wages for services where the fundamental productivity is stuck in the past. And if you look at the data, it's just so clear. You can actually see this happening. Over the last few decades, the relative price of manufactured stuff, like TVs and electronics, has often gone down. But at the same time, the price of services, like college tuition, has just exploded. This chart right here, this is basically a picture of Baumol's cost disease in action. So it all sounds kind of bad, right? I mean, it's called a disease. But hang on, because here comes the most important, and honestly, the most counterintuitive part of this whole idea.
It is so easy to look at crazy high tuition and just blame universities for being bloated and wasteful, or to see hospital bills and just blame poor management. And look, sometimes there is waste, but Baumol's theory tells us that's not the main reason. The real underlying pressure driving up prices is just baked into the very structure of a modern, progressing economy.
This is the big takeaway. In a really weird way, the rising cost of a nurse's time is a direct consequence of how incredibly productive our tech companies and factories have become. The disease is actually a symptom of the economy's overall health. It's a paradox. The amazing success in one part of the economy creates these unavoidable cost increases in another. It's not a failure, it's a side effect of progress.
And that leaves us with a really tough question at the end, doesn't it? If we can't just make education and healthcare more efficient like we would a factory, then what are we supposed to do? It totally changes the conversation. It stops being about blaming teachers or doctors for being expensive, and it becomes a much deeper question for all of us. As a society, if these essential services are destined to become more expensive, how do we decide to value them and how do we choose to pay for them?